welcome to another video. My name is Jenna Van Mourik and I am the author of the upcoming novel Jerusalem's Daughter by me. It's book one in the Generations of Faith series and all of the information about it will be linked below. This is a biblical fiction book that is book one in my Generations of Faith series. It takes place during the time of the New Testament and Christ's ministry on earth. In case you weren't aware, I am actually self-publishing this novel, which means that I drink a lot of coffee and do a lot of work and thinking and stressing and in general being anxious, but we'll get to that. A question that I get asked quite frequently is, why did you choose self-publishing? And I definitely have an answer for that. So today I thought I would just kind of quickly give an overview about my writing history and my writing goals and why I decided to publish my first book myself instead of going through a traditional publisher or querying or trying to look for an agent or anything like that. A lot of writers, I think, tend to start out with a plan in mind. They kind of know where they want to go. Maybe they know they want to see their book in a store, or they know that they want to have a publisher, or they know they want to be agented, and that's maybe a part of their motivation for writing, or it's just something that they have as their end goal while they write. And for me, I started writing and I literally had no goals, no clue, no end game, no plans. I didn't know what I wanted or what to expect even. I had joined Bookstagram because I wanted a place to talk about my writing and I knew that I would want to have like a bookish community, but I had no clue otherwise about, you know, if I wanted to traditional or self-publish or hybrid publish, or if I even really wanted to publish it at all, because publishing can be pretty scary. People would find out that I was writing a book and they would say, oh wow, are you going to be traditionally published? And I would say, I don't know. And then they would ask, oh wow, are you going to self-publish? And I would say, I don't know. And that in general created a lot of confusion. And whenever I was approached about the subject, or anytime anyone asked me in any kind of Q&A, or just even in real life in general, like family, friends, I would give them the answer of, I really hadn't decided. I figured I would just write the book first, and then once the book was finished, or once the time came to start getting a little bit more serious. Yes? Can you say hi? Look at the camera. Look at you. It wouldn't be a Jenna Van Mourik video without a Piper break, huh? You wouldn't. You just had to come in here so you could do this. Okay, go on, go play. Go do so. Oh. Please? Please leave. Please. Whenever anyone asked, I would say that I figured that I'd just write the book first, and then once the book was written, kind of take a lot of time to just pray about it and see where I felt I was being more led. And then as I was writing the book, every time I would work on the book, I would pray about my writing process, that, you know, the words would be inspired and tell a story that God wanted me to tell. And I would also pray for clarity about what God wanted me to do with my book once it was written. And I kind of just assumed that, you know, after a while I would have an answer basically about where I was meant to be going with this project. In December of 2019, I finished a major round of edits to the point where I felt like my story was ready to be seen by other people. I'd sent it off to a few critique partners, multiple people had read it, and I'd kind of started to feel like, okay, this story has kind of taken shape. It's kind of got, you know, its structure, it's pretty solid so far. It needs, you know, editing and work and all that kind of stuff, but like it was pretty functional as far as like functionality of a novel goes. And so I realized, I was like, okay, well, now that the story is there, like I wasn't going to be doing a lot more developmental editing. now that the story was written, I needed to figure out what I was going to do with it, because obviously I couldn't just keep it on my computer forever, and I needed to have more concrete end goals. It was at this time that my sneaky plan was formed. For those of you who have been subscribed to my channel for a long time, then you'll know that about in January of 2020, I started a series on my channel called Interview with an Author, where I interviewed both traditionally published authors and self-published authors, and I called it Traditionally Published Tuesday and Self-Published Saturday. And each week on one of those days, I would post a new author interview with an author that I interviewed. That was a huge step for me for multiple reasons, because although I'd been making YouTube videos and making content for quite a long time, I had never actually really reached out to authors with interview requests. I was a little bit nervous because I was like, hey, do you want to do like a weird little thing with little old me on my little old YouTube channel? Some of my favorites were definitely Misu Andrews, Caitlin Grace, Cleopatra Margot, Tara Grace Erickson, and my like good friend Audrey Bodine, but like everyone involved was so great. Those ones just come immediately to my mind, but there were so many great authors. I'll link that playlist down below. But essentially in December of 2019, I wanted to figure out if I was going to be traditionally publishing or self-publishing, and I figured that, you know, I still didn't have any real direction of leaning one way or the other. I still hadn't really heard an answer from God, so I figured I should start doing some research. But rather than just reading about on the internet the benefits to self-publishing or traditional publishing, I decided it would be better to just ask actual authors. So I disguised it as author interviews. The reason that I did my author interview project was a little bit selfish and a little bit for you, because I knew that viewers would enjoy hearing behind the scenes from authors that they admire. Mainly, the reason that I started it was first and foremost for me, because I wanted a chance to pick at other authors' brains and ask authors questions that I'd always wanted to ask them about their publishing experience that maybe you couldn't get from just a Google search about traditional versus self-publishing. And it was at this time in January of 2020, as I was publishing these videos and putting them together and scheduling them to go live on my channel, that I really was like, I'm self-publishing. That is what I'm doing. Within the first 3 videos that I'd posted, I immediately knew. Now, I'd already worked out with all these other authors that I was going to be interviewing them, and I'd already put them all into my schedule and all that stuff. So of course I was going to continue the series as long as I could, and as long as it didn't conflict with like my real life work schedule and then my school schedule. But 3 videos into it, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. It was like I watched these videos, I heard these people's experiences, and instantly a light bulb just went off in my head of like, hey, this is what you are supposed to do with this story. This is the avenue that you should take. Now that you know the history of kind of how I decided to self-publish, the short answer to that is that I just asked other authors what they'd done and why they'd done it, and spent a lot of time waiting and thinking and praying to get to the point where I felt confident in what I thought the answer was. By that point, I'd become pretty attached to these characters, and I'd already outlined several other books in this series. So I knew it was going to be a series, and I knew that it was typically harder to pitch a whole series to a traditional publisher if you're a debut author than it is to pitch 1 or 2 books or 1 book that's complete but that could potentially become a series. And once I knew that I wanted this to be a series, and I knew that there were other stories in this world that I felt very strongly called to tell, that was a big turning point for me where I was like, I've got to self-publish because I feel very led to tell very specific stories. Which brings me to my next point of why I decided to self-publish. And that is because I ultimately wanted control over what did and didn't go into my story, whether that means the content in the story, the scripture in the story, the amount of scripture in the story, and all kinds of things like that. With a traditional publisher, traditional publishers and the editors and the people who work there, who are all doing what they're doing because they want to help you, but ultimately they are the ones that kind of have the bigger say over what your novel looks like, what the finished product is, compared to you, because you are obviously the one contracted to them. I've heard some stories from different sources where maybe the author was, you know, influenced to change something and that maybe didn't end up coming out the way they wanted it to because their publisher wanted things to be a certain way. And I kind of just knew that I have my own very strong convictions, so I ultimately wanted to be the one that had the final say on what happened to my story. Not even just, you know, from like a character arc standpoint of like, does this book end the series or does the series keep going? But also just from like a of biblical content and a scripture content and just how much of that I wanted infused into my story. And the last big reason that I chose self-publishing was just because ultimately I wanted to have control, and I think you'll find that this is a popular answer with those who choose self-publishing, is that I wanted to control what the cover looked like. I wanted to control what went into the book. I wanted to control how the book was marketed, all of that kind of stuff. And a lot of the times when you choose a traditional publisher, you're choosing a traditional publisher, or I know people who've chosen a traditional publisher because they feel like they don't necessarily have the skill set to do all the work of a publisher, or maybe, you know, they want a bigger publisher to handle the marketing or handle the promotions or handle the book release for them. But I did feel like I knew people that had skills, and I knew freelancers that had the skills I didn't have, and I knew that I had a lot of the skills that I would need in the end anyways. So knowing that I had a lot of the skills that I would need made me realize I don't necessarily need a publisher to do all of this work for me. If I hire good freelancers, if I divide out the work that I can't do and do what I actually can do. And since I had those skills, I just decided that I was going to use them and not worry about finding a traditional publisher, querying a traditional publisher, because, you know, I really felt like at that point the world, this is going to sound really cliche, I totally apologize, but at that point I was starting to really feel like I needed my story to be out into the world. I don't know why, but I felt like there was something in my story that I needed to get it out as quickly as possible. Not that I needed to just publish it the next day, because obviously I've spent the past year working with editors to, you know, polish it and really make it shine, but I felt like I needed to get it out as soon as possible. There was a reason, there's, you know, someone needs to hear something in this book. And once I had that sense of urgency, and once I had realized that I had a lot of the skills I would need and the skills that I didn't have, I knew people who worked independently who did have. Given my background doing Bookstagram and BookTube and all of these different things, I kind of felt like everything that I'd spent the past few years working on and doing on as a side hobby had ultimately been preparing me for this path, and I didn't even know it at the time. So I just felt like there had been a very clear sense of direction all along, and once I saw that, once that clicked in my mind, then I realized that I believed God was calling me to be a self-published author, and I did it. I'm doing it. It's coming out. So again, if you want to learn more about Jerusalem's Daughter, book 1 in the Generations of Faith series, then definitely check out the description box below. If you have any questions about self-publishing that you'd be interested in hearing me answer, maybe I could do a self-publishing Q&A, or you could just leave your suggestions in the comments below, and I could try to make dedicated videos just to those things. Let me know if you'd be interested in something like that. Once again, thank you so much for watching. My name is Jenna Van Mourik, and if you liked today's video, make sure to hit the like button, and maybe even leave a nice comment down below. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and click the bell icon to make sure that all notifications are turned on. If you'd like to connect with me outside of YouTube, then you can do so on Instagram, where I am active pretty much every single day, and you can also check out my author website at www.authorjennavanmourik.com for more information about me, my books, and my free resources for you. All of my other social media links, handles, and information will be in the description box. For watching, and I will see you all next time. Bye!